Classic Doom arrived in the 7th generation of consoles pretty early. Xbox 360 gamers could spend 800 Microsoft points in 2006 and experience Classic Doom in glorious HD. In 2010 they could do the same to get their hands on Doom 2 and its new expansion pack No Rest for the Living. PlayStation 3 gamers were left out in the cold for the longest time though. They were made to wait, quite a long time actually, to get their hands on their Classic Doom fix. Before the PlayStation 3, the last time a Doom game graced PlayStation was at the back end of 1996, when Final Doom touched down on PS1. That's a long time. But as the PlayStation 4's shadow loomed on the horizon, Doom finally graced PlayStation 3. Doom 3 BFG Edition landed on 16th of April 2012 and brought with it not only Doom 3, but also Doom 1 and Doom 2. These versions are effectively the same as the Xbox Live Arcade versions of Classic Doom, with a few tweaks here and there. But then on November 20th, 2012, just over a month later, Bethesda Softworks unleashed a very unique package that came out of nowhere and instantly became the definitive way to experience Classic Doom on consoles. For $14.99, gamers could buy the Doom Classic Complete Bundle, a compilation that not only brought Doom 1 and Doom 2 to PlayStation 3 on their own, it brought the whole Classic collection with it. That includes TNT, Plutonia, the Master Levels, and No Rest for the Living, offering up the entire official roster of Doom games up to that point. They also came packing leaderboards, deathmatch, and co-op multiplayer. Perhaps most surprising, the collection didn't ever make its way over to Xbox 360. PS3 was the only place gamers could fully experience the fleshed out console version of Final Doom. The collection arrived with very little fanfare and remained available for purchase only on PlayStation 3. PS4 never saw a version of this. Unlike over on Xbox, where the arcade versions of Doom and Doom 2 were made backwards compatible with Xbox One, Classic Complete was never brought forward to Sony's future consoles, and it was quietly removed from general sale in August 2019. To me, it's absolutely crazy that this collection was released with such little fanfare and then never brought over to the Xbox. As a big Xbox gamer at the time, I'd have loved to have played through Final Doom on my console, but for whatever reason, the decision was made to keep it on PlayStation. The ports themselves are very interesting. The pitch-shifting noises and sounds within the game are at their absolute peak here, while some of the music in this version is very odd to listen to. In particular in the TNT portion of Final Doom, some of the music is not very well optimized and comes through very weirdly. It's clear that not much care was given to bringing these soundtracks over without issue. Likewise, No Rest for the Living loses its music tracks from the 360 version, instead using the default Doom 2 tracks on each level, which I'm not a particular fan of. But honestly speaking, these versions are very stable and very fun to play. It's so much Classic Doom that you really can't complain with the quantity on offer here. Unfortunately, there is no way to grab this collection officially anymore. PS3 games don't show up on the PSN consoles when you log into PS4 or PS5. Even if you manage to hook a PS3 up and get to the PS3 store, the game has long since been removed. If you really want to experience it though, the open source PS3 emulator, RPCS3, has excellent compatibility with the collection and, provided you have a PC or Mac that can handle the job, you can dive into the single player portions of the game without any issue. This is one of the big reasons I hate digital storefronts. This is arguably the first ever true complete collection of Classic Doom on consoles. The first time the entire Classic Doom campaign was brought to console without any alterations, and you can't experience it officially anymore. I've been enjoying playing through it, and I honestly would recommend giving some of the Final Doom levels a try if you haven't played it already. I figured I'd show off what these are like to experience and dive into the Final Doom portion a tiny bit. It's very likely I'll be covering these a lot more on the channel moving forward, so let me know what your experiences are with this collection, and would you have bought this had it made its way to Xbox 360? So these are the different expansion episodes that you can choose to load into. You can see here that you've got all of the classic retail ones, as well as the master levels and the No Rest for the Living expansion. To me, this is pretty awesome, because up to this point, Final Doom had not made its way to any of these consoles, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly go through each of them and just sort of show them off, because if you're like me, I have never actually had the chance to experience these for myself. And yeah, I've heard people talk about them, and yes, there are YouTube videos out there, but it was really fascinating to finally get to sit down and experience this properly. The main thing to take away is that if you've played the BFG editions of Doom and Doom 2, then you probably already know what you're in for here. These are the exact same WADs, and that means that the WADs that introduces also appear here, and I know the BFG editions of Doom and Doom 2 were not particularly well received. One of the big problems, and you'll hear it when we're kind of making our way through these different games, is that the pitch shifting is very aggressive in these versions, and you can't turn it off. So it's unfortunately one of those things that you just kind of have to get used to. But yeah, PlayStation 3 gamers really had to hold on and wait for the classic Doom experience. It wasn't until the back end of 2012 when they were actually finally able to get some form of classic Doom, and then 2 different ways to play it appeared out of nowhere. Obviously, people who really wanted to could play the PlayStation 1 version on the PS3's, but let's be honest, who was gonna do that? Probably a lot of people, actually. As I said earlier on, when you're playing through these different games, you will notice that they share a lot of the positives and negatives that come from the BFG edition. Now, obviously, that also includes the lighting. I've always found the BFG editions of these games to be a bit kind of more lit, and it does take the atmosphere out of some of the darker rooms, but that's a personal preference. It's a very minor gripe. The main selling point, obviously, for the complete collection is that this was the first time that you could play all of these in one bundle, and like I kind of mentioned, I am very surprised that this didn't find its way over to the Xbox 360, because I do feel that there was probably, you know, some money left on the table for that, but obviously something happened behind the scenes. People didn't really want that to happen, and that's fair enough, I guess. What I'm going to do now, though, I'm just going to let you listen to some of the ambience of this one, and I'll check back in a bit. So really, it's TNT and Plutonia that have always fascinated me about this collection, because, as mentioned, TNT and Plutonia have never actually made their way to the Xbox 360, and it's kind of interesting because up until this point, the only way you could officially play Final Doom on consoles was through the PlayStation 1 version, which was ironically the last version of Doom that touched down on a PlayStation console before BFG Edition landed. It's definitely interesting to see this running on the 7th gen consoles. Obviously nowadays they get bundled in with everything because Bethesda and id have realized that leaving out games is stupid. But I'm just going to let you listen for a bit, because I want you to just hear the music difference in this one, because the music interpretation in TNT in particular is quite aggressively different. I hope you heard that then. It's very clear to me that they didn't put too much effort into these Final Doom conversions. It really does feel like they just kind of left it as it was. And I have looked around on YouTube, I have sort of looked at comments on various boards, and apparently it gets much, much worse the further you kind of head into TNT. In particular, apparently Furrow is a bad level for music. I'll be completely honest, I don't quite understand why they didn't try to fix this. It does kind of have the feel of cash grab to it, which is a real shame when you consider how much effort was put into the Doom 1 and Doom 2 ports when they touched down on Xbox 360. And if you're wondering, any of the tracks that use the Doom 2 versions of the music will get those versions of the music that you're probably used to if you've played the Xbox 360 ports of these Doom releases. It is a bit disappointing because it does take away from the overall experience, because otherwise this is great. This is Final Doom, it's running buttery smooth, there's no real issues with performance. Once you kind of get used to the controls, it's absolutely fine. Maybe this is why they didn't want to do a wider release onto Xbox 360. I'm also gotta say, I am not the biggest fan of the massive amount of pitch shifting that goes on in these versions. As I mentioned, this is the BFG build of the engine, and it definitely kind of is a bit distracting when everything kind of has the weird wobbly effect to it. So listen to this bony boy here. Yeah, it is what it is. I really do feel this compilation is a bit of a missed opportunity, because I have to point out, I was very aware of what was going on PS3, even though I was an Xbox 360 focused gamer around that time. I did own a PS3 by the end of, you know, the PS3's main lifespan, and I was kind of aware of what was coming out, and I never heard about this collection. There wasn't really any advertisements for it, there wasn't really much press given to it, it just kind of touched down and it was like, there you go. I also think it doesn't really help that this came out just a month after Doom 3 BFG Edition landed down, because obviously that was the focus, but you would have figured they would have, you know, wanted to advertise Final Doom finally arriving on consoles in its fullest form, even if like it was only going to be a background project. I don't quite understand what was going on with this compilation, because let me tell you, I would have bought this if I'd known this was around. I would have bought this when it touched down, but I never did, so I've never officially owned this on real hardware, which is kind of a real shame in my opinion, because I would have bought this. But then again, like, if you bought this on PS3, you couldn't really play it on PS4, which came out like a year later, so this really did get overshadowed by everything going on around it at the time. And of course, that means that Plutonia's in here as well. Now, Plutonia obviously isn't nearly as demanding as TNT in my opinion. A lot of its levels aren't nearly as big, so I don't think this one's going to be quite as compromised in terms of music, because this actually makes use of a lot of the normal music from Doom 1 and Doom 2. But the novelty of playing Plutonia on a PlayStation 3 is pretty fun, I have to say, even if, you know, poorly advertised as it was. But obviously, PlayStation 3 more than capable of running classic Doom, and it handles this pretty well. Like, there's no real issues to talk about. And the best part for me as well is there's a full multiplayer mode included. So if you want to do co-op, it's there. If you want to do deathmatch, it's there. If you want to do split screen, deathmatch and co-op, it's there. Like, I'm actually surprised they went all the way to including split screen, to be honest, because by this point, split screen was kind of being phased out by a lot of these studios. You also get to live out the trilogy of PS1 Doom inclusions by having the master levels included. Now, this has its own sort of level selection. Obviously, with the master levels, there's no fixed level progression, so they've kind of put together a route through. I'm not quite sure how many master levels are actually in this. I'd have to research that for future videos. But again, more Doom levels is good. You're never really forced to come and play the master levels. And they're not terrible across the board. Some of them are bad, but this one isn't. This is actually a really fun opening level. It's also worth me noting that there was a PC version of this compilation released, but it didn't feature all of the different kind of games that this one does. For example, it doesn't have No Rest for the Living, which we're going to dive into right now. So if you bought this compilation on PC, you didn't actually get all the things you got on the PS3 version, which means that the PS3 version of this technically gets the sort of best experience. It's very weird. It's such a weird situation. As you can no doubt hear in the background as well, this uses the Doom 2 sort of normal music. So No Rest for the Living kind of uses different music tracks in its levels, and honestly, I kind of feel that it's a bit lazy for them to kind of just do this, because it obviously goes to show they didn't put that much care into all this. It's another sign that this was definitely not a priority project. I'm just going to let you listen for a second, and then I'll come back in towards the end of the level. Now, I get that to some players, this is all going to seem very kind of mundane. It's like, oh, it's just more classic Doom. But I never got to experience the PS3 versions of these. In particular, the final Doom on PlayStation 3 has always fascinated me. I've always wanted to try it out, and finally getting the chance to do it has been really, really fun. Now that I can access this reliably, and now that I can actually experience it fully, I'm going to be doing a lot more coverage with the final Doom parts of this in particular, because that's such a unique part of this collection, and it's very undercovered on YouTube. But let me know, did you ever own this? And thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, then please check out my channel memberships or Patreon for access to exclusive videos and the ability to choose retro roulette games.